Hi, welcome to the Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Ken Meyer, my brother and coin and currency expert. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you, Cedric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm really happy to have you on the show. I know we have been trying to get together for a while to talk about this particular perspective. And I want to share with my audience that the show today was actually inspired by a comment that was made by one of my really good friends in Minnesota. He's a gentleman that happens to look like Mr. Ken Meyer. And, his comment said that he felt that people that looked like him were under attack, specifically men over 40 that looked like him. He also said there were many numerous comments on his page, and the comments were, I wasn't responsible for slavery. I wasn't responsible for things that, my ancestor did 400, 300 years ago, nor do I want to pay for it, nor do I think that way. I want to hear real solutions and real answers so we can all push forward. So it inspired me to have a conversation with my friend, Mr. Ken Meyer. Why I asked him as a person that, quite frankly, represents or looks like many of the people that we consider, we meaning people of color, consider as part of the mainstream culture. Um, and asked him, would he come on the show and just give his honest opinion about, quote unquote, making America great again. What does that mean? What does that mean to a person of color? What does that mean to someone that looks like him? What is his perspective? What is his perspective on racism and discrimination? Is it real? Is it not real? Is it something that, the majority sees as something in our head, something made up, as a sickness? Or is it something that's truly acknowledged and acknowledged as fact because we all know that we're navigating these landmines? So again, I want to thank Mr. Meyer for being on the show as my brother and being open and honest and willing to have this conversation. So we're just gonna, dive right in, but I want to make one final statement to my audience. And the statement I want to make, when you have a cut on your hand and you don't take care of that cut, you run out, it gets dirty, cut gets infected, it turns into a sore, it festers. I think the same thing happens when you think about perspective and conversation. As a member of the majority, we say your perspective is being seen and shown every single day. Ours is being hindered. But there's a certain voice that we don't hear out in the mainstream. That voice is an honest voice. Because when we look at the president, when we look out at Mr. Donald Trump, we hear that people that look like Mr. Meyer feel that they're not being represented, that they're losing the country. All these negatives. So something's going on. And respectfully, I want to thank him for giving us that perspective, because if you shut that perspective off, it festers like a sore. It becomes worse. It becomes angry. It becomes bitter. And now you're dealing with something that's much worse than a simple scrape. Had you just listened to it, had you just addressed it and took care of it, it's something that would have healed properly and it would have led to something good. So again, Ken, I want to thank you for being on the show. Sorry to get a little long-winded, but I wanted to kind of lay out why we had this show. So again, making America great, my brother. What's up with that? Okay, I'm sure you hear it and people hear Trump. Oh, you're talking about
Right.
Trump.
No, we're not talking about
But
Trump.
we're not. But when African Americans hear making America great, there's a certain perspective that comes to mind. And before I share what that perspective is, I want to ask you, honestly, but before we get into that, quite frankly, tell my audience and tell me a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and why you decided to even have this conversation with me.
Okay. Well, again, my name's Ken Meyer. I work at a local coin shop here in town, in the Madison area. It's my passion. It's my life. I'm a fourth generation coin collector in my family. So I inherited my great-grandfather's coin collection, so
Wow.
it's in my blood. And I'm trying to get my nephew into the coins to start the 5th generation. And I don't know how many family can say that they have 5 generations of coins, but we're trying.
Are you trying to get me in it too?
And I'm trying to get you into coins
I'm still listening.
or even silver bullion, or gold bullion, whatever I can do to help you with an investment. I'm here for you.
Yes, sir.
And I'm here for anybody in Madison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, finish.
Yeah, so I'm from Baraboo, Wisconsin. I currently live there. I originally grew up in Deerfield, which is east of Madison here. But I bought a house up in Baraboo.
Okay.
So I currently, travel every day from Baraboo.
Okay.
So I'm used to the drive. It's not that bad.
Okay. Now tell us what made you decide to come on the show.
I would say the main reason is I'm just a little, I guess I wouldn't say frustrated, but I would say that, this whole biracial type of thing. I mean, I've had friends that have been African American. I've had friends that are, Chinese and all different, types of the human race. And I want to give the other human race of any kind, like you said, that I don't like the word white either, Caucasian or whatever. But we're all the human race. I mean, we all come from the same, race from the very beginning.
And I agree with that.
Yeah. So I don't understand this whole, like if you are, 50-50 for black and white, why I don't understand why the United States here has to still call you African American.
Right, I understand.
And I don't agree with that.
No, I understand.
And then that's also not just for the African American, it's for like if you're 50-50 white or you're 50-50 with Asian or whatever, we're all from the human race. We can all, make children no matter what race we are. We're still gonna make it another human.
Yes.
No matter what color our skin is or what our eyes look like or whatever.
Yeah,
that's not,
understand.
I don't think it's fair to either race.
So, if I'm understanding you, you came on to offer a very honest and clear perspective about how you feel about relations between groups and relations between, let's say, people of color that look like me and people that look like you, and the gap in perspective, because I think there's a lot of assumptions that's made on both parts. So I think this conversation can help clear up some of the misconceptions.
I hope it does.
So again, making America great. Let's get right into it. So again, what do you hear when you hear that? What does that mean to you? We really want to know. I want to hear what it means to you, as Ken Meyer, and then I want you to also share with me what you've heard it means from different people in different spaces. I want you to give us that window, that ear, into that other perspective, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And again, for my audience, Ken is jumping out on a limb and sharing with us perspectives that he's heard. These are not his perspective. He's going to share with us initially how he initially feels about a topic, but he's also going to share with us different things that he's heard in different situations to kind of give us perspective and things to talk about.
Okay.
Ken?
Yes. Well, first, I would say my perspective is that I think we need to give all races a chance. Like as soon as you would meet somebody for the first time, don't judge them by the way they look. For number one.
But again, bringing you back to making America great, what do you hear when you hear that?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I would want America to be great again because I want to see all these races getting along.
Gotcha.
Yes, that I want America to, once we get all these races to get along, then hey, then America can start, getting better. There won't be any of this, fighting of, with not just guns, but fighting among the races of even, fist fights or whatever because they are, not getting along because of of the color of their skin or the way that they look of any kind.
Or disputes an ideology,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Now, in terms of, so making America great, again, when you hear it, it's more of a future.
yes.
Taking us to a future,
Future,
that
exactly.
brings us all together.
Yes,
and
correct.
pushes us forward together.
Yes, you are.
So
reading
from
me,
your
yes.
perspective, that's what, when you hear that, that's what you hear.
Yes.
Now, if you don't mind, share with me, because a person like me can't get through certain doors
Right.
and hear certain opinions.
Right.
And again, I know I'm putting you out on a limb. I don't expect you to,
Okay.
jump off the deep end.
Right.
Again, but with perspective, can you share a couple of one or two other perspectives about what making America great again? And I'll share with you, as a person of color, when I hear that, I hear taking us back to, post-civil rights, 50s, 20s, when separate water fountains,
Right.
when people that looked like me didn't have appropriate rights here in the country,
Yeah.
and other people were pushed forward. People that looked like you were pushed forward. People that looked like me were killed, murdered, and everything that was done to keep us back. Not just African Americans, Latinos, any person of color. So when we hear that, not to speak for all,
Right.
okay, but there's a large perspective that when we hear that, that's what that means to us. To us, it's very racial.
Correct.
To us, it's a code word to say we want to take it back to the old way. We want to take every stride that you've made to push people of color legally, education-wise, socially. Instead of pushing that forward, we want to take all of those things from you and push it back. And from someone like me's perspective, we see that happening with the laws, and we see our president moving things in a space that way. So that's what we hear. So would you mind sharing with me this last minute before we go into the break some of the other perspectives that you may have heard about what making America great is, just to share with my audience, if you don't mind. And you'll have an opportunity to share again what your perspective with is at the end.
Okay. Well, so if we go back to the whole, drinking fountain thing or whatever, that's just, I don't understand why we have to have separate, places where the certain races have to go. I really don't understand why they have to.
So do you think there's a perspective out there that when someone that looks like you, that's not Mr. Ken Meyer, quote unquote,
Yeah.
hears that, it means great, let's push everyone that looks like us forward, and let's take those black folks, and let's throw them over here, let's keep them over here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're getting bigoted. They think they're running things now anyway, right?
Yeah.
So let's put them in their place, right?
Right.
So would you agree that's a perspective
Yes.
that you hear?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It is. Yes.
Right? Would you also agree that making America great is, well, we've had these laws in place so long, look at them. They're still in the same place. They're not doing nothing.
They're not doing nothing. Exactly.
They're not doing anything. They're not taking advantage of anything.
Right.
Right? Completely ignoring systemic things. But they're not doing anything, right?
Right.
So take it back. They're nothing but animals and crooks and criminals and drug addicts anyway.
Right.
Right? Is that a perspective that you
Yes.
hear? Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
My question, and we'll go into this in the next segment, is how do we get around, let's have a conversation about how do we get around some of those perspectives? Because there's people who truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah, I know.
There's
Unfortunately,
people
there
who-
is.
Truly, truly believe that.
Right.
So again, we'll talk about that when
Okay.
we come back from the next segment.
All right.
We'll be right back on The Conversation Shop. Hi, welcome back to The Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Ken Meyer. Hey, Ken.
Hey, Cedric.
Hey, we're going to jump right back into our conversation. On the last segment, you and I were discussing, making America great. What does that mean, when you hear it as a person that's a member of what we consider the mainstream, quote unquote, versus, a person of color. And on the last segment, I shared with you some of the ideas and images that comes to mind from people that look like me when we hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a throwback to the past. And I love the way that you think, and I feel the same way, that when you hear that, and it gives me hope, quite frankly, when you hear that, it's more about hope for the future,
Mm-hmm.
making America great again by bringing people together of all races and diversity and dichotomies to push the country forward together.
Right.
So I love that, and I love that that's the space that you're in, the space that you come from. But we also talked about you giving my audience and people that look like me an ear into the rooms that we can't get into, a perspective that we can't hear. Because again, as I said before, we need to hear what some of those opinions are, whether it's good or bad, racial, negative or not, and understand where some of those opinions may be coming from, good or bad, in order for us to push forward together, in order for us to get to that, making America, from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
making America great again the way that you see it. We can't get there until we address this. This is what's holding us back,
Right.
this conversation. So again, I want to give you an opportunity to share with my audience, because I know I got a little long-winded on the first segment. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share your perspective on what that means very clearly. And I want you to give my audience some opinions and things that you've heard in reference to that perspective, good or bad.
Okay. Well, like for instance, I don't like. This is my perspective. Like, yeah, if you have two guys would, and this is going back, into the say the 70s or whatever. I just don't like how that you have two guys and you have the white guy, the Caucasian guy. You go into a bar or whatever, or even just like a sit-down restaurant. That you have everybody that's already there at the restaurant. Well, then when they look at me, for example, there's no, there's like nothing wrong with that. Nobody's looking at like, oh, there's a Caucasian guy coming in here, so he's like welcome. Well, I don't like how where you got the rest of the customers or whatever at that restaurant. Well, they always got to have that second little look at this other person that's coming in, no matter if they are black or Chinese or even Mexican or whatever. It's like, I want this to make America great again. I want everybody to be welcome at whatever place they want to go to. That not without having like a second look like, oh, I see that African American guy came into the shop here or whatever. I want everything to be equal.
I understand.
Yes.
We want everything to be equal.
Right, that's what I'm getting into. And then for you guys, you want to be welcomed equally at whatever shop or store or grocery store or whatever.
Genuinely.
Yes, that's a good word too. That I want this United States to welcome all races, all religions, all whatever. I mean, that's what's neat about the United States here, is that, everybody that came from this United States, we came from Asia, or we came from Australian, or we came from whatever, the other side of this planet, this Earth. We all came from that part of the planet, and then we all came to North America here, and we're all races. We're all from different races. That's what makes America.
Right.
America is all different races. We're not just one race.
No, I agree with you totally. But just to add for the audience, one of the main differences between that is with people that look like me, specifically Africans and African Americans, we were the only group that didn't make the choice.
Right.
And that's to come. We came and changed. So
Right.
that's the only part. So there's a system that was set in place from that, and there's remnants of that we're still dealing with in this country today. So again, I'm on the same page as you, saying that we all should be moving forward together.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we have to address this sore that's festering,
We need the salt. We need to heal this
that
sore.
we keep pouring salt on,
Yes.
keep ignoring.
Right.
So again, I just wanted to add that little piece, validation to people that look like me, that we didn't
You didn't have
choose
to
to-
choose. Yes.
we didn't have a choice.
Right.
But again, I want you to finish. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh,
So.
yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So when they come, when the African Americans came here, you know, we didn't give them an equal chance.
Mm-hmm.
We just had them. We turned them into slaves,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't. It's not. We shouldn't have gave them that, or we shouldn't have. Excuse me. We should have gave them a chance to show what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not just, you know, give them demand what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
We know, like, we need to, you know, see what they can do, and actually that would maybe help rather than, you know, forcing them to do something they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you know, okay, so when they came over, maybe one of them was like really good in construction work or something.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, that they could, you know, actually help the situation instead of, you know, us making it worse.
My brother, real quickly, I have to add something.
Okay.
I just have to dive in on this so I don't want to mislead the audience, and I want to share this with you. They were.
Oh, okay.
The people who build the antebellum homes, the people who build the infrastructure of this country,
Yes.
the people who laid the foundation for the Industrial Revolution, all of that were built on free labor. The labor were black, African labor, Native American labor here in the country.
Yeah.
So that skilled labor had to come from someplace.
Right.
And that skilled labor was people of color.
Yeah.
It wasn't, that's where it came from. Now, were there artisans and people that look like you that helped train and get them to where they needed to be?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if there were other people that looked like them that came over to train. You know, those are gray areas. But again, we built the infrastructure. And I share this with you, and I'll let you finish. You look at Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
Benjamin Maneker laid the city out. That's an African-American man who did that. So I want to share with the,
Good.
you know, my audience that, you know, we have to tell the real history of the country. So there were African Americans and people of color who made monumental contributions to this country, medically, construction, building trades. So again, let you finish.
Well, that's good that we have this.
But it was under the means of bondage. Again.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's great that that the United States here, that we have African Americans or whatever race, that we need to give them a chance to build, you know, structures of any kind for, you know, I mean, you know, we need to give them a chance that for being a doctor or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's great. I love seeing other races helping each other. You know, I'm glad that if I see a African American doctor helping, you know, this white couple,
Mm-hmm.
and for them to give birth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and vice versa. You know, having a white guy helping.
No, I understand what you're saying in terms of, you know, we all should come together. So I understand that. I get that. And I understand that's where you're at. But what I also want you to do with my audiences is, again, share with me the other perspective. We have the euphoric. We're there.
Okay.
Because to me, that's euphoric. That's where we all want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of us, that's what we want.
Yep.
That's where we want to be. But that's not where we're at. So we got to deal with the reality of where we're at, and we have to deal with these attitudes of where we're at now, today. So let's talk about that. In the last segment, share with me some of those opinions and attitudes that you hear about making America great again. So I don't want to leave that motion again. I want to stick to that and have you share with me some of those negative opinions. I don't want to tell you what they are.
So you want me?
I want you to tell me what you've heard.
What I heard.
What you've heard.
Okay. Well, I guess some of it, I guess you could say that you've seen, maybe like even the audience has probably seen it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
That you see all this negative stuff on TV of, Okay, that I guess some of these African Americans that have been shot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems to be that it's coming from the other race.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have these streets downtown, East Washington. You got these schools that are closing, that because the students are walking out.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see that the both races are walking down to the Capitol and they are, saying, that enough of this.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think, again, I think us coming together is great. But you brought up something a few minutes ago about, the deaths, the shootings of African American. Let's just jump in there because
Okay.
I'm not going to,
No,
I
I
don't
was
want to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Because the euphoric thing, we're there. I get that. But again, I want to take that and put that to the side. We hear that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness, you and I are there. Okay?
Yeah.
But I want to have a conversation about what some of the real attitudes are. So, again, if it'd be question and answer, I'll ask you.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem doing that. So, again, we're talking about the shootings.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
someone that looks like me would want to ask you, how do you feel about that? How could someone that looks like you, okay,
Mm-hmm.
go that Mr. Castile in Minnesota
Okay.
can say that that guy was justified in killing that man? Literally, let's just put it out there, okay?
Yeah.
Because you see a difference, a gulf in the opinions, right? From people of color,
Mm-hmm.
how we view it, and then people that are quote unquote in the mainstream, right? Well, the officer did his job. He was fearful. You keep hearing that word, fearful of the gentleman in the car because he said he had a gun, right? But we
Right.
look in the news all the time and see people that look like you with guns, and they don't get murdered, shot, killed.
Yeah.
They don't get treated like people that look like me, right?
Right.
At all, not even a little bit.
Right.
So again, how does that make you feel? How do you feel when I say, how could someone like you justify that? That looks like you, justify something like that? I want to hear that perspective.
I don't. You want to hear what I have to say
Yeah,
about it?
I want to hear exactly. You're
Yeah,
my brother. I want to hear it.
because I mean, I just don't think it's right to have where you have the. So you have somebody being shot, so you automatically think that it's a white that has shot like an African American.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like hearing that. I mean, we need to have the cops and and everybody like that, do the investigating first,
Mm-hmm.
not just say, well, okay, here we go again. We got a white shooting a black guy again.
I'm glad you said that. Keep going. I'm glad you said that.
I mean, before the media,
Mm-hmm.
comes out and says all this, they need to do
The facts, right?
They need to do this and investigating the facts to get all that through before everybody thinks, oh God, here we go, we got another shooting, and it's probably a white shooting a black.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Let me ask you a question about that. To keep that perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But I go, didn't you see the video? So you're telling me that my eyes are lying to me. My ears are lying to me, right?
Yeah.
The investigation. Okay, so and from a person of color that looks like me, we go, every invasive, we just saw Rodney King get beat to death, beat down.
Right.
Everybody acquitted, right?
And he
So-
was beaten down by a white.
Right, okay, so
Yeah.
when we consistently see people that look like us get murdered and killed,
Yeah.
and people are getting let off,
Yeah.
and then you're saying the process, it mean what do you? Well, it makes us question the process. Then the process isn't for me, isn't for my protection. It tells me that the process is for your protection. So it
Right.
tells me that there's a difference in how we see the law, and there's a difference. It
Yeah.
suggests that there's a difference in how we are protected by the law. How do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, for this whole law, it seems that the law is protecting more of the white when it's not, and then more than the African American. It needs to be,
But how do we fix that? How do you think?
it needs to be 50-50.
How do you think we can get around that? Because you hear where I was fearful. So my question to you is, and and I ask you as my brother, I know you don't fear me, right?
No.
But,
Right.
there's a fear that people have when they see a person of color walk in a room and looking a certain way. Is that fear validated? I'm going to ask you to hold that comment
Okay.
until we come back from the next break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Ken Meyer. Ken and I was having a conversation on the last segment talking about the differences in opinions or perspective as it relates to people of color, people that look like me, and people that may look like him are part of the quote-unquote mainstream when it comes to, let's say, African American shootings.
Yep.
In my community, we see these videos, Mr. Castile. We go, hey, I don't know how you can justify killing this man. And I don't know how you can justify shooting and murdering this man, quite frankly, with his child in the backseat of the car, his girlfriend sitting in the car, and say that that was safe and it was justified. So to us, we see all of this, and it seems very unfair. So the perspective that you come from, that I heard you come from, is reflective of a mainstream perspective that we hear. So we'll go, okay, let's wait and see. Let's wait until they investigate it, right?
Right.
So they'll investigate it and go, not guilty. So you got 20 of these, right?
Right.
And all 20 of these, everybody's not guilty.
Everybody's not guilty. It seems like, yeah.
Everybody that looks, in these 20 cases, all the people that look like me, the verdicts are not guilty, right?
Right.
But let's take another situation. Same situation happens, but now it's someone that looks like you. Okay?
Okay.
And we're watching this from the outside, people of color, people that, may not be a part of the quote mainstream, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see this. They see everything happen 360 degrees different
That's right.
from how it happened over here, right?
That's Yeah.
And when the verdict comes out, somebody's going to pay.
Somebody has to pay.
One person, somebody's going to pay,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's getting off. Somebody's going to pay.
That's right.
So as a person of color, right,
Mhm.
growing up, and when we consistently, keyword, consistently see this, we have no other space to be in other than to say and to realize that it's unfair, it's unequal,
You're right.
and has to be some discrimination involved. And what is the only difference? The melanin in my skin or monetary? Because we know there's differences in monetary as well. But again, we see those differences, so we don't trust. So when we hear you say that, again, we got the kid in Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
All these lies have come out, kid shot in the back. We say, oh, here we go again. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're waiting, right? And then you have to also understand, I'm going to let you talk real quickly. You also have to understand how silly this looks for us when we see the Parkland shooting, right? We see this.
Mm-hmm.
And we see all these people of color kids getting murdered and shot by the police all over. Nobody's talking about gun control. Parkland happens. Gun control marches are. I'm happy about it. We're very happy about it. But you have to understand how people of color look at this. It seems like a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
It's hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me your perspective or your opinion on that.
Well,
Ken Meyer's perspective.
okay. Well, yeah. My opinion is definitely they need to, as soon as you see a shooting, everything has to be, put on hold, and everybody, no matter all the cops, all the police tape, and it needs to be all marked, all this type of stuff, and they need to do the investigating before they come down to any, if they're guilty or not guilty.
We get that, but
Yeah,
we hear that all the time.
I know,
But every time you say that,
right.
when it looks like someone like me is not guilty, so you still trust that?
No.
So how do we get around that? Do you have an opinion on that? I mean, we know it's bad, but how do we get around that? I mean, or share if you don't have an opinion, But because to me, I go, how can anybody that looks like you believe that they are not guilty?
Well, they.
So I'm asking you, can
Yeah,
you
they.
tell me? If you can't, I understand, but can you please tell me? I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so say I was the cop,
Right,
okay, and so I'm white and I'm seeing that a black guy was murdered.
right.
Okay, well, before I would talk to the media or whatever, I want to make sure that I am getting all the facts before.
So you would assume in your head that the police officer, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was justified in shooting her. Is that what you're saying? Because to me, that's what you're suggesting.
Well, I'm not saying that. No. I'm just saying that we need to. I mean, you guys are saying, well, okay, well, if the person was shot, you.
It's on tape.
Yeah, right. I mean, they need to look at the full tape, investigate the whole thing, do photo by photo.
But they're still not guilty when they do
Right, and that's not right.
that. Okay.
No, that is really dead wrong.
But so do you think there's a way for us to get around that, or you think we're just kind of stuck in,
Well,
how do we get around those perspectives?
you guys seem to think you're always stuck. Yes.
But let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's talk about that perspective. So again, I hear that from some of my
Yeah, I don't like how you
from
guys
some of my
think you're always
friends,
stuck. We need to
and when we
solve
say you
that.
guys, like when we say quote unquote you guys, let's put it in perspective because I don't think I'm stuck.
Okay.
But there's a perspective in the African American community
You guys
that-
are always thinking that you're stuck.
that we're stuck.
Yes.
So I'm glad you said that. So when I hear, or people like me hear you say that, me knowing you and me being at a certain place of understanding, understand the perspective that you're coming from. But I can tell you once I step back into this space
Right.
that your perspective, and you hear privilege, you ever heard that word again
Yeah.
before? What you don't understand, and you may not be realizing is, that's coming from a space of privilege. Because the term is, you guys always think something is being done to you. Right? That was what we just said. So this is what I'll say to you real quickly.
Okay.
Using the same example I used before. We got 20 murders,
Yep.
all shot.
Yep.
Nobody's guilty. We get same 20 murders. Someone that looks like you, 80% of them somebody going to jail. And you mean to tell me that's right? We just said in one sentence that's not right.
Right.
So when we're consistently seeing that and we go, there's a problem, we feel like we're under attack. The reason we're saying we're under
You guys
attack.
think you're always under attack.
The
yeah.
reason, I'm explaining it. The reason we're saying, or we feel, because that's not something that's in your head. That's what I'm saying to you. Because for us, I'm glad we're talking about this. This is the real issue, right? This is one of the things that we talk about all the time in our community. When we have a conversation with someone, when two people that look like you and I have a conversation, right? The perspective is, when it comes to racism and discrimination now, it's very subtle. And what I say about subtleness, it's very, very subtle in terms of it's done in a way, let's say verbally, that, because let me put it in this perspective, as a person of color, we're raised, we deal with these landmines every single day, all day. So let me make that statement. So when you say,
That's right.
when I hear you people think you're always under attack, yes, they do. Yes, we do. We growing up being taught to navigate landmines all the time, because if we are taught not to, we fall in them. We become victim to them. And what you see in the community is a lot of people that look like me falling victim to those landmines, right?
Yeah.
The people that learn don't fall into those traps a lot. But we do. I still navigate landmines that I hate, that I have to navigate. Is
You have
it
to
fair?
navigate every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Now, I tell you, do I think I'm under attack? No. But do I understand the perspective of someone that don't have the toolbox that I have
Yeah.
to think that they're always under attack? Yes. Now, do I think some of the infliction is self-inflicted? Yes. because I believe in self-accountability. You know me. I believe in self-fulfillment, self-accountability, right? So I think there's a piece that holds us back. We hold ourselves back. But to say, for using the same example, that there isn't a system in place, because we talk about those murders and things and how it changed, we're talking about a system in place that's fair for you and unfair for me, right? So what you hear that people that look like me and people of color talk about is that system that's in place to push us back, right? To not give me justice, but give you justice. To put me in jail, but not put you in jail. But if I put you in jail, I'm gonna give you 1 year, but I'm gonna give you 20 years.
Right. Yeah. That's,
Okay?
Yeah.
So then
I follow.
we talk about wealth in the country, right? Did you know, most people don't know this, there's a report that just came out. In the next, 75 to 100 years,
Okay.
the wealth gap in this country between people that look like you and all people of color is going to be so dramatic, and that the majority of people that look like me are going to be poor underneath the
I remember seeing
poverty
that.
line.
I remember seeing that on your Facebook page.
Yes, underneath the poverty line.
Yep. Yep.
And that's dramatic. And to think, and again, that it suggested that people that look like you, wealth is actually going to grow. And to think that there's not a system in place that supports that is ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Because it suggests that people that are navigating and in the economy like me don't exist. Or it's very, very few. So that should tell you that it's less than 1% of us. That's what that report suggested. But
Yeah.
it tells you that there's a system in place for discrimination and racism. So to us, it's very real. So when we hear that statement, it suggests to me that you don't think it's real. Do you have a comment?
Well, I agree with just about everything you said there. That if we would get to the poverty line where the African American, I hope it doesn't get down to that for them being, poor. I mean, we need to have equal rights here. That if the African American is really good in being a doctor, well then we need to give them that chance.
Right.
It's just being a doctor or being whatever. We need to give them the equal chance to make a living on what they're good at. And then, if they're really good at it, then we need to pay them the appropriate, payment, no matter if it's, 50,000 or 100,000. I mean, if they're good at what they do, we need to pay them the appropriate wage.
I hear you. Because
Yeah.
you know what, Tim, Ken, I'm sorry. As I'm talking to you, man, I look at you, you're a good man. A
Thank
good
you.
man. There's a lot of good men out here that look just like you. I meet men like you every single day. But as a good man, going back to the statement that we made, and it's a real one, I'm glad you shared that. You guys complain. I hear that you always think you're under attack. When we come back from this next break, we're going to talk about some of those things a little bit, and I'm glad you shared that, because my question is, how do I take a good man's intention
Okay.
that says we all should move forward together, right? Making America great, again, is pushing everybody together. Diversity really believes that is my brother, and I know that, right? So how do we address someone like you, right, who truly believes that? But how do we speak to the perception or the feeling that you have that you guys are always complaining about these things and think you're always under attack? And we're going to talk about some of the things, what those things that you hear us say that we're under attack about. And the reason I want to talk about those things is, how do I help give you an understanding of where I'm coming
Where you're
from,
coming from.
so you know that it's not fake, unvalidated, or so you know that it's a situation that I'm just not choosing to succeed. There's things that are put in place to try to hinder me, but it's my responsibility to get around them. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
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 We'll be right back on The Conversation Shop. Hi, welcome back to the Conversation Shop. We're going to dive right back into our conversation with Mr. Ken Meyer. Ken, we're getting right back into the conversation, my brother.
Yeah.
So, people of color and black folks, we think we're under attack a lot. That was the statement that was made. I'm teasing you a little bit, but just diving back into that statement, that we complain a lot or we think we're under attack when we're not. So when I hear that, it suggests to me that you come from a perspective of things have gotten better and we may not be taking advantage of what's available to us. So I don't want to talk for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you to give me examples of, clarify for me what you mean about that. And then, let's talk about that a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Just jump right into it. Because I want to hear how we complaining. Please tell me.
Well, I mean, so we've gotten a whole lot better here with this whole racial thing, probably in the last, ever since, Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
But now just within this last, say, couple years and all, with all the shooting, it's maybe gotten a little worse here. But to me, I think everything is, you guys are always afraid, it seems like. But I don't think you guys need to be afraid.
Okay.
Is that where you're kind of?
No, I just want you to say how you feel.
Right. You guys. The cops out there, and that I really, this United States, it's getting better every year. It's getting better. But you guys still seem to think maybe you're afraid.
Like we're a target.
You're a target, exactly. Well,
I'm fearful when the cops come to my car. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, as long as the cops are doing their job, you guys should not think that you're a target.
Okay.
Because as long as they're doing their job, and if they're not doing their job because they are shutting off their camera,
Mm-hmm.
that if that cop is shutting off their camera and not showing the whole video,
Mm-hmm.
that a cop ought to be fired.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what race they are.
I understand.
Yes. So if they had, so say there was a white cop and he was shooting a black African American.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but then before they shoot that African American, they're going to quickly shut off their camera to try to hide any evidence.
Right.
Well, then that cop needs to be accounted for.
No, I completely agree with you on that. But when you talk about, not being fearful, right? So in our heads, we're going, so who's gonna tell on the cop if he's not doing his job?
It needs to be the other cop. And so like so say this goes to court or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this other cop that can, and say they're both white cops.
Right.
He needs to,
do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Exactly. You just took the words out of my mouth. He needs to do the right thing, no matter if he's protecting his white guy, his white partner. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
That if he saw the cop that shot the African American,
Mm-hmm.
that he saw him shut off his camera.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he needs to, under oath, tell the freaking truth.
Right.
Race does not matter in this. It should not matter in this situation. That he needs to, do his job.
I agree with you totally, but you're talking about trust.
Right.
So you trust the police.
We should.
Do you trust the police?
If you want my opinion, I want to.
But do you trust when the police when you come in contact with the police?
Yes.
Do you trust that they're going to treat you fairly and do the right thing?
I want to. To answer your question, I
want to?
Yes.
But what don't you trust? Tell me, what are the things that worry you?
Well, what I'll be worrying is that if it's a white cop or Caucasian, I know you don't like the word white, but if the Caucasian cop, I'm maybe a little fearful. I want to trust them, but if I see they're not doing their job in person or on video, I'm going to get upset.
Okay. But you're not thinking about, you're not worried about getting shot, or you're not, you
well,
don't think it's a life and death situation. I'm asking you, do you think it's a life and death situation for you? Or could be?
It could be, yes.
Really? Go ahead.
Because I mean, well, okay, it's like for an investigation, like if something would come into the coin shop that I work at, well, which we've had the cops there come and arrest some people right in front of me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and to be honest, neither one of them have been white or black. They
Okay.
were mixed.
Okay.
And I'm not feeling fearful because I'm hoping that the cops are doing their job.
Right.
And if I don't think that they're doing their job, then maybe I might be getting fearful.
Okay. Do you think you have if you see them not doing their job, do you think you have a voice?
Then
tell on them?
Yes.
And
To tell on the cops, right?
Yes.
Yes, I strongly believe that, because now say if that would go to court,
right.
and then for me being a witness, I would under oath tell the truth, no matter if it was a black guy that was being arrested or a white guy or a Mexican or whoever. No, I would not feel scared or fearful because I'm a witness.
Okay. For me, I would want to tell, but I wouldn't think it would matter. I would say that they weren't doing their job and they did it wrong.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't of the right stature, I would feel like, it wouldn't be weighted as highly as someone else. That's what someone that looks like me may feel that way. I don't feel that way, but someone that looks like me may feel that way. And because in the past, when they've made those statements or tried to assist, it hasn't gone anywhere. Or you heard this, no snitching, right? You've heard that, right?
A few times.
Right. So you'll have someone that'll come out and say, well, such and such did this in the neighborhood. But the officers won't provide that same person protection, right? But this protection is living in a neighborhood full of killers. So the killer that you just asked her to testify against lives next door to her. So what you think the killer gonna do when he gets out and knows that she told on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so but you expect that person to tell and do the right thing. So what's the responsibility of the police officer to protect that family and make sure that that person doesn't have an opportunity to come back next door to her? So these are a lot of the little things that we're kind of navigating in terms of, ideologies of what we view as right, because behind certain decisions are circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, again, but I didn't mean to cut you off, but go on and finish it.
So again, I mean, I just don't. I want all the, I'm just trying to think this over quickly so everybody understands that what I'm coming from is that we need to do all the investigating here before we do any judgment.
I understand that, but what the point I'm trying to make to you is that, as we're talking about it, I agree with you, but there's a difference in perspective, meaning people that look like me have a true distrust for the police because our interactions haven't been positive. We've seen the cops in a lot of situations not do the right thing. And then when
you guys.
We have.
You have.
And when we try to say that they're not doing the right thing, we're not being believed.
Believed, correct.
And then those same crooked cops terrorize our neighborhoods, terrorize our communities, because that's been proven as well. That's on paper, right?
Yeah.
That those things have been done. So to tell a community that they should trust the overseers, right? Because that's how we look at them sometimes in the community as overseers. Don't cross this line. You cross this line, we're going to beat you back over there where you should be. So how can you tell us to trust them? You understand what I'm saying?
It's definitely hard on your guys' end to trust the cops.
And then going back to what you're saying, what we said before, and we'll kind of wrap up with this when you said, well, you guys feel like you're always under attack. So I want to ask you, do you realize that, do you see how we may come from a perspective of feeling attacked all the time. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show, my friend.
All right.
And I want to thank you guys for joining us on the Conversation Shop. See you next time.